very good. Let's see, writing research paper. I am going to talk to you from my various hats that I wear. I am an evaluator. I run my website, which is his homeschool center, and on there I offer online research paper, either teaching or tutoring, or just independent study, asynchronous. So you can go there if you need an extra help with something. The other thing I can do is answer lots of questions. Plus, I've taught this class at co-op a mazillion times, and I've had several individual people, students that have been through the class online. But then I am a professional editor. I edit doctoral dissertations. And so I know the end product of why we need to prepare our students, because I have doctoral students who write more poorly than my high school students. And so I'm really proud that PHAA requires this, because students that don't even know how to start and they're doing a dissertation. I did my dissertation. It was 220 pages long. I don't want to hear anybody complain about 10-page paper. Okay. No, doesn't work that way. Yeah. And then let me see. Those are my main, but I've been a college professor and I've seen how poorly papers are written there. And I wish I could get every one of my college students and my doctoral editing clients and teach them this very basic stuff, because it would help them. So writing a research paper, I like to equate with, I'm just trying to find, here, I gotta go back through the screens. There we go. Kind of cooking. And I have my mixing bowl, and I have my measuring spoons. I can put this down so you can see in the background. And my measuring cups. Because a research paper is very much like a baking project. And we have to think about the end thing. So that's why I have apple pie on here, not just to make you drool, like right after lunchtime, time for dessert. But to stop and think, if you don't know what an apple pie looks like, it's going to be really hard to get through the steps. And so part of my goal here is to help you envision what an end product looks like, so that you know how to back up and get through those baby steps to get there and then be excited about it. To get to the end product, we do need baby steps. We do need a recipe. We need to make sure we have all the ingredients. We need to have a time plan, because if you don't know how long to put it in the oven, you're going to end up with charcoal pie or apple pudding junk, slime stuff. Yeah. And so the other thing is, especially with us homeschoolers who are teaching home ec, if our students in the kitchen don't know when to ask for help, we run into trouble. So it's also very good and humbling not to need to know everything, but to know when to ask for help. And that's a beautiful character trait development in our teaching. With the recipe, I personally love this little book put out by Christian Liberty Press. The one picture is the older edition. It still works and it's fine, and it's dirt cheap, like $2 if you go to the Christian Liberty site. And this book can be used forever. I sent one along with all of my children to college. And then the second edition is prettier, but it's more expensive. It's just more up to date as far as electronic resources go, but the basic stuff within the book is perfectly fine in either edition, and I love cheap. It has all the steps there. If I had to write a book, it would be just like this, except for one thing. It is written with the MLA format, and I am a specialist in the APA format. What does that mean? So you're cooking with Fahrenheit versus Celsius measurements. You just have to kind of know what's similar, what's different about that, how to make those computations and those changes in your mind. But the reason we need to know formats is that the formats are lists of rules, especially how to write your bibliography and how to cite the works in the bibliography within your paper. And the two main forms are MLA, which is Modern Language Association, and the other one is APA, which is American Psychological Association. Let me just give you that end product picture so that you have an idea why. And basically it's if you graduate from college, no, from high school, yeah, we will graduate. And if you decide to go on to college, whatever field you go into has their own professional journals. And those professional journals have preferences to which publication format they use. And so that's what sets the course. So in college, you might get history classes, English classes that ask for MLA format, but you might have education classes, science classes, medical classes that ask for APA format. And you might get different ones. It's really good in high school to learn one so that you know what is one, and then the other one is easier by comparison. At least you know one and you have a point of reference. This book does the MLA format, which I think is dumb, but that's my opinion because I do my editing all in APA. So I have made handouts to adjust those particular pages to the APA format simply because I don't have to think about correcting bibliographies and citations in the APA, but I do have to think about it in MLA. It's just my own preference. So anyway, that's a real quick overview on why we have format. Formatting is just rules. Let me tell you a little secret. Write it down. Purdue OWL, OWL, like the bird, is online writing lab, and they have free, did I say free? Free information on either MLA or APA. It's just whichever link you click on once you're on their site to help you with how do I write my bibliography? How do I write my citations? We'll get into that in a little bit. So for gathering the ingredients, we've got our recipe, which is our little book. If you're using a curriculum other than the Christian Liberty Press booklet, follow what your curriculum says. But many of them do not go step by step like a recipe. And so that's where this information comes in handy. There you go. Susan, I just want to ask a quick technical question. I don't see the little record button. Is it on? Are we recording? Okay, just making sure. Thank you, everybody, for tolerating technical questions. Let's go through the gather ingredients. The first ingredient we need to know when we're going to build a paper is a topic. We want something that we're interested in, because if we're going to put this much time into a major project, we don't want something that, especially the first time we do a paper, pick something you're interested in. And know that you're researching what do other people say about my topic. You're not going out there and trying to do a doctoral dissertation and change the world with some kind of new research that you're going to come up with new theories or new. This is a discipline to learn how to gather information on what other people say about my topic. But when I write about it, I can't say it's my ideas. I need to be able to share where I got that information, whose idea it really is, and give credit where credit is due. One thing we want to do about the topic, which we'll talk again in another page, is make sure that it's a reasonable topic. You can't talk about World War II because there was the Pacific Theater and there was the European Theater, and then we had the German front and the Italian front and the Japanese front and the South Pacific. It was way too much. So we have to learn how to narrow our topic to something manageable so we don't end up with a 200-page paper when we're getting ready to complain about 10. Right? So narrowing our topic, but not so narrow that we can't find enough information about it. We'll go over that again later. And then a thesis statement. I'm going to take you through each one of these in more detail. But the thesis statement, if I like to equate a paper almost like a skeleton. And the thesis statement is the brain in the skull that drives the rest of the paper. If you don't have a good, strong thesis statement to start with, then you're going to have a paper that's all over the place. Another ingredient that's good to have is an idea map, which can lead us to an outline. Another great ingredient to have are 3x5 index cards and 4x6 index cards. People say, well, I'm saving money. I don't have to do different sizes. Trust me, each one of these suggestions is a really helpful stage. I'll go over them in a little bit. It's really important to have a Ziploc bag. You can even have the generic brand. It's just easier to type one. And rubber bands. I actually give my students points for showing me, holding up and showing me their research paper kit with their 3x5, 4x6 cards inside a Ziploc bag with rubber bands. They get points for homework with that. And then also we need to have internet and library and home bookshelf resources. So, okay, let's talk about topic. If any of you have questions along the way, please unmute and say, excuse me, and then ask your question. And I'm okay with that because I get going. So there's all my things that I just showed you with ingredients. This is the topic idea. Pick something of high interest, because you students that are listening, you don't want to be writing about something that makes you fall asleep. You really want to invest a lot of time and energy in something that's interesting to you. But you see that huge canister with rice? Trying to write a research paper on a topic that big, you're going to have much more than your required length, which is not a bad thing, but it gets bogged down. And guess what? I bet research paper is not the only thing you're doing. You probably still have math. You probably still have science and social studies. You might even have some activities that are still going on, even if they're on Zoom. So you don't want this to be all consuming. Don't bite off more you can chew. But then the bottom arrow goes around to a teeny tiny little container. And you don't want a topic that is so small that you can only find a tidbit of information about. You want to be able to find something right in the middle, like that yellow arrow, that is big enough to do a 10-page paper with. And when I say 10-page, PHAA is also very specific about 2,500 words, which is approximately 10 pages. So I prefer to say 2,500 word paper when I'm talking to PHAA students, because we don't want to turn our font so big that we have 10 pages with 15 words, you know. We're talking about 2,500 word paper, which is approximately 10 pages. So we have here an idea map. And an idea map is a way to help organize your thoughts. You put your topic right in the middle. So let's say I'm going to write about Helen Keller, because that was a big influence on my life. I went to college to learn deaf education. And in 5th grade, I read about Helen Keller. So I'll put Helen Keller right in the middle circle. And then I'll just brainstorm. What are some things I could think about? Okay, Annie Sullivan. I could think about Perkins Institute. I could think about sign language. I could think about deafness. I could think about blindness. I could think about job opportunities for deaf blind people. There's so much. So I'm going to just brainstorm. And then out of all the million things that are hitting my brain, I put them in those circles around my topic. And later on, it helps me. I can prioritize them. I can say, well, I don't need all of this. I can get rid of the ones that aren't as important to me and what I want to learn in my paper. And it helps me to organize it then later. And I can actually then pretty much build my outline from my idea map. And so if you need 20 circles, guess what? Your topic's too broad. If you need 2 circles, your topic's not broad enough. So this helps us go back to that slide with the big container, the little container, and the middle. We could say Papa Bear, Mama Bear, and Baby Bear, but I think I'm talking to high schoolers, so I better stay away from that. It's important to have about 3 subtopics for your paper, because that will give you some 3 supporting points. And if you're able to develop 3 good mini paragraphs or paragraphs, several groups of paragraphs, that will help you be able to fill your paper out nicely. Let's go back to the idea of thesis statement. The thesis statement is the GPS that drives your whole paper. The thesis statement is the brain. The outline is the skeleton. The paper is filling out the flesh and the details and the hair color and all that beautiful stuff. And so we need to have a brain guiding everything with our paper. We need to have that GPS. A thesis is a direct statement that explains the topic of the essay or the research paper. A research paper, you know what, is just a big essay. What you believe or your position on the topic and why you believe it. So it's really kind of indicating my topic, where I stand on it, and what direction I'm going to take this paper. I only talk about my topic. I never talk about my paper. I never say, in this paper, we will learn about. Never talk about the paper, only talk about the topic. So here's the three basic parts. What's the main topic of my paper? Helen Keller. What claim do you believe about that topic? Helen Keller was an amazing woman who learned to overcome barriers, whatever. So amazing is a good clue to show you that I'm going to have a very positive slant on the Helen Keller paper. Directions, what are some key points? She overcome blindness, she overcame deafness, she became a famous speaker, independence, whatever. Those could be, and I could say, Helen Keller was an amazing woman who overcame blindness, overcame deafness, and became a famous speaker. So those are three supporting points that I could take my whole paper through. Here, thesis statement down at the bottom. Let me see if I can move my squares enough that I can see the whole thing. Some individuals have strong food preferences that do not waver regardless of where or with whom they are eating or even how the food was prepared. This is kind of a little bit more boring in my mind, but for some of you that want to go into culinary, this would be a fantastic thing. Food preferences is our topic. Some people are not flexible, could be what I believe. And then some of the direction that I'll take my paper is regardless of where, with whom they're eating, or even how the food was prepared. So you see, a thesis statement sets it up, and I can take my whole paper and go from there. Plus, my reader is getting a little mini advertisement. Why should I bother to keep reading? So this can help people go. Now, here's a thesis sample example. I know that some people have just tried to cancel Dr. Seuss, but I really like Dr. Seuss, so we're going to stick with it. Plus, coming up is St. Patty's Day, and every year for St. Patty's Day, we always make green eggs and ham and read the book, and whoever was the most recent new reader got to read to the whole family during breakfast. So, tough tootsies. So, some people have strong food preferences that do not waver, no matter where or with whom they're eating or how the food was prepared. What do you think about that? There's a 3-point. Not on a train, not in a tree, not in a car, let me be. Could not, would not, no, but see, it says where. And it says with whom? With a fox? With mouse? And it also says how they're prepared. I would not eat them here or there. I would not eat them I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam. I am. So we've got a supporting. I could do a whole paper there. Any questions on thesis statement? Just unmute and say your name and then say your question. Okay, that's what drives the whole paper. Now, once we have a thesis statement and we have an idea map, and we take the idea map and take all those extra circles and kind of put them in a pecking order, we have a little outline to go with. I print it up. And in my Ziploc bag with my 3x5 cards, my 4x6 cards, my rubber bands, I have a paper with my outline and at the top my thesis statement. So that as I'm doing research, whether it's at home, on the computer, whether it's out in the library, I always have that to go back to, because if I'm looking at stuff and I see this and Helen Keller, and then I find out, ooh, other things about deafness and sign language, it's going to take me off course. I want to keep my thesis statement and my outline ever in front of me so I don't get lost. I don't want to just get into French cuisine when I'm thinking about green eggs and ham and where they're eating and how they're prepared. I want to make sure I don't go off on a tangent. I always keep my thesis statement and my outline with me at all times. I have one student that I'm working with right now. He works in the evening. He carries his Ziploc research kit with him to work because he sometimes has time to work on stuff. I'm proud of him. It's one way to keep everything together so it doesn't get lost. One of the things that we need in our ingredients are the 3x5 index cards. We use that size for bibliography. Oh, I can just do it online. Well, that's nice. But let me tell you, from a woman with experience, when you have cards that you can actually move around in your hand, it's helpful. Okay, let's go over really quickly the important parts of an index card with a bibliography. In the library, when I'm online, anytime I find a resource that might be good for my paper, might be is the operative word, I quickly stop and I gather all the bibliography information. And the first one I find is I put number 1 up in the upper right-hand corner. And the second one that I find, I put, you got it, number 2. You must be a PHAA student. And then I put every single source that might be good has a bibliography card and the important information on there that I will need for later. The author's name, the title of the work, where it was published, the year it was published. If it's a library book, the call number where I could go back and find it again if I need it. I actually put a note which library I got it from. One thing about index cards is if it's an online source, you might want to start a list like a Word or an Excel spreadsheet and keep all the links there. But with the link, put source number 1 so it matches your card number. But don't try to write the URL because there's always a mistake and you'll drop something. And if you put it in an Excel spreadsheet, you can save it and copy and paste it later. Copy and paste is beautiful. Only for bibliography stuff, not for content of a research paper. That's called plagiarism. No, we don't do that. Okay, so having the 3x5 index cards for every possible source is wonderful. Having some electronic is okay too, but don't give up the 3x5 cards. Why? Later on, when I'm done, I toss out the cards I didn't use. I keep the cards that I did use in one of my beautiful rubber bands. And then later, it's easy for me to put my cards in ABC order, alphabetic order, because my bibliography has to be done in alphabetical order. So it's easy with cards to manipulate. So just keep in mind, 3x5 cards are bibliography cards. They help you start. These are my working bibliography cards for my dissertation. You do not need that many. 5 or 6 cards is really nice for a paper. We end up needing maybe 3 sources, but let's go for bigger because it's such an amazing topic. You wouldn't be wasting your time. I put a rubber band around them. I keep them in a Ziploc bag, and I keep in there the piece of paper with my thesis statement and my outline. So here's a picture of that skeleton. The thesis statement is the skull. The points on the outline are like the ribs and the bones. And as you type your paper and fill it out, it flushes it out to make a full creation. We want to have an outline. Now, I don't care. I'm not like from a Becca mindset or something. It doesn't have to be Roman numerals, then capital letters. To me, the format isn't as important as the organization. But they do need to have some kind of label. So Roman numerals is nice. Capital letters is nice. It's okay. You work with your moms on the format that's important for your curriculum. And it's important to keep that outline. Now, why? Check this picture out. On the left is my paper from my dissertation. Remember, this created a 220-page paper. Let me see, where's that copy of it? That's my research paper. It was worth it. And it was about homeschooling in Pennsylvania and about the law. So it was important. And I use it with most of my evaluation clients. Anyway, if I didn't follow this system, I wouldn't have been able to get that paper. So I have my paper. I should do it this way to match the, I don't know, with my thesis statement and my outline. And then on the other side, I have my bibliography cards. And in the middle, I have note cards. Let me see, do I have a slide with that? Yeah, we'll do that next. The note cards are where I'm going through and reading, oh, this is a great book about Helen Keller. And I write down points about Helen Keller. And there's a system that goes here. And I want you to keep this big picture in mind. The outline, the thesis statement, the bibliography cards, and the note cards. We'll come back to this. On the bibliography cards, no, not bibliography, these are note cards, not the bibliography cards. These are note cards, okay? There's a couple little rules. And I do not do this electronically. I do this on cards, 4x6 cards that I can take notes on. There's some secret codes on this card. In the upper left-hand corner, there's a number that matches the number from the bibliography card. So if that great book I found about Helen Keller was number 1, I would put number 1 there. And as I'm reading through that book, if I find something amazing that fits with one of the points of my outline, I take notes. So I have my bibliography card number in one corner. I have my outline point. It's point F or point Roman numeral 2 or whatever up in the upper right-hand corner. And that helps me later on. I can reorganize my note cards by my outline, stack them, and start typing, and my paper's almost done. And I have to do a bibliography. I know where I got the information. I can cite it, and I can do my bibliography later that I've shuffled and redone the little cards in alphabetical order. These cards are the best thing in the whole world. Don't take shortcuts. Now, another thing is I put a note, because they're note cards, on here. It's important to remember this. And moms, you that like to save money, this is going to go against every grain in your body, but only one note per card. That way, as you're writing the paper, you don't have to put that note up there and that note down there and split this card up and cut the card into little pieces. One important point per note card. My note cards were this high for my dissertation. You don't need that. Yours will be about like this. On the note card, we have a bibliography card number that matches with the little cards. We have an outline reference that matches with the paper with the outline. We have one important point. I also like to put the page number where I found it. So if I have to go back again, I save myself time. And down at the bottom, I like to put little notes that I think about it. If I quote the words, put quotation marks around them so you remember to do it in your paper. I try not to just write it word for word, which is another reason why we don't want to just copy and paste. It's hard to do when we have just bibliography cards. Try to put the information in your own words. That way we avoid plagiarism later. If you're in college and get caught with plagiarism, you can get kicked out of college. You can lose scholarship money. You can fail a class. So we want to practice in high school good habits for later. Questions? Just unmute and ask it. Just for your information, there's my bibliography cards and my note cards for my dissertation. You don't have to have all that. My paper required 5 chapters, which was like 5 individual papers, but they were probably between 20 and 50 pages each. So maybe more. I had appendices, and I think my bibliography alone was 50 pages long. Okay, put it all together. You see the hamburger? Okay, so we've had recipes, cooking analogies. We've had skeletons and skulls analogies. Now we've got a hamburger analogy. Now we're going to write the paper. We've got our bibliography cards. We've got our note cards. We've got our thesis statement and our outline. Now it's time to put it all together. If I take my note cards and rearrange them in order with the outline, and then under each point, put them in a good flow order under each point, I literally can type my paper from my note cards, adding in, some extra words here and there. My paper, the body of the paper, the supporting points in the middle of the paper is almost done. Follow your outline, follow your notes. Your paper's almost like happens. It's so beautiful. And then when you're done with the body and those amazing paragraphs in the middle, following your outline, we can add an introduction and a conclusion. Let's go back to the last slide. You see the hamburger? You see the introduction and the conclusion? That's like the hamburger bun. The cool thing about the introduction and the conclusion is hamburger bun is made from the same dough. And so we want our introduction and conclusion to almost say the same thing. just a little bit different because the top is rounded and the bottom is squared off. So we don't use the exact same wording. We don't copy and paste our introduction into our conclusion, but they're very, very similar. So if I have an introduction that talks about my topic, not about my paper, and then my supporting points following my outline with my note cards, and then my conclusion reflecting back saying almost the same thing as the introduction, I have an amazing paper. Also, we want to learn the art of writing transitions, saying one reason why Helen Keller was amazing is she overcame deafness. Next topic on my outline. Another reason, you hear that word? It's tying it back up to the thesis statement and using transition words to help us move smoothly through our paper. Another reason Helen Keller was amazing is she overcame blindness. So we want to put transition statements in that move us smoothly from one point to the next, not just choppy, jump, jump, jump. We also have to say, okay, when it says Helen Keller was born in this particular year and lived in this town, I didn't have it memorized. Where did I get that information? I have to put a citation in the middle of my paper, usually in a parentheses, usually the author's last name and the date from down in my bibliography. And it's citing which resource from my bibliography I'm using. That's why we call it a citation, so that my reader can go down in the bibliography and say, wow, I want to go to the library and get that book. That is so cool. I want to read it for myself. It's like a crumb trail through the woods, so that your reader can follow and find the same resources and read the same information. It's kind of cool. So we have to have our intro and conclusion, our transitions in between our paragraphs of the body, our references, that's APA's term for bibliography. MLA's term for bibliography is works cited. So I can tell which format you're using just by seeing the title of the bibliography. The citations that are throughout the paper, and then go back through and edit it and make it a smooth, polished piece of paper. And that's what we need to know about research papers. If you can get that recipe down, you've got a beautiful way to do it. Following that little book that I said at the beginning, I'll go back to that slide. Sorry if I'm making you dizzy. There. It's all in there. It's all in there. It's a good recipe. So that's a great resource to have no matter what curriculum you're using. I'd like to open it up to questions and answers, please. So unmute yourself and bring it on.
Hi. Annika.
Hi.
So if I have a date in a paper, I have to cite that no matter what, even if I change around the wording? Okay, thank you.
So excellent question. The things we cite are exact words and they're quoted, or statistical information or specific facts like dates and locations. Where did you get the information? You didn't just come up with it in your head. So you put in there the author's name and the date, depends on what format you're using. And then down in the bibliography, you have that resource listed in alphabetical order. We cite direct quotations. We cite facts. Now get this one. This is the one that'll get you. And we cite ideas. So if a research paper is researching what other people say about my topic, and I go get their ideas about my topic, almost every single paragraph has several citations in it. The point behind a research paper is you went out to see what's the information about my topic. You brought in information about other people's ideas. The whole paper is cited. Maybe not the introduction and conclusion, but you should have citations throughout. I do a little exercise where I have my students, excuse me, my dog, come here. I have my students take colored pencils and go through and underline every quotation in green, and then underline every date in red, and underline every statistical fact in blue. And they go through and they underline on one of their rough drafts and color code it, and then somebody's ideas. Well, it's all somebody's ideas. Now that's where you go back and you add your citations. It gets frustrating because I don't have them add their citations till later just because of this step. It's really better if you add your citations as you go, but the first time through is a learning process, so I don't want to overwhelm. Did that help you, Jenica?
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. And anybody else? Other questions? Excellent question. You got it all. Everybody's going to have a perfectly written research paper. Then let me ask you some questions. Quiz time. What trivia fact about the order of sources in the bibliography did you pick up on? How do we list things in the bibliography? I wish I had Tootsie Rolls I could throw at you, but I don't think they would go through the camera.
You answered them alphabetically.
Alphabetically. Excellent. Go to the head of the class. Yay. Come on, ask me a question. Unless you're all experts in research papers, then you should be teaching this.
I have a question.
Okay. What's your name?
When my name's Gabe.
Hi, Gabe.
When you when you have to cite something in the middle of the paper in parentheses, what things do you put in? Because I assumed you don't put in like the whole thing. What do you need to put in that citation?
So in the middle of the paper, if it's a direct quotation or somebody's statistics or facts or somebody's idea, depending on which format, if you're going to follow MLA, you would follow what they say. If you're going to follow APA, you follow what they say. I'm going to answer for APA. Parentheses, author's last name, comma, date, parentheses. Okay. If it's a direct quotation, after the date, comma, page number from the book where I took those words. Or if it was a website, a paragraph number from the website. I don't put the whole URL up there. Then that says, oh, I can go down to the references, the bibliography, and go alphabetically and find it, and then look and see where they got it, and then I can go find it myself. So the citations are a crumb trail to the bibliography, which is a map or a GPS connection to the source. Excellent question, Gabe. Phew. Another one. Well, Susan Richmond, I think they all got it together with research papers. We don't even have to offer this in the future.
I have a question.
Okay, yes. What's your name?
Adarin.
Hi.
My question is, how would you find legitimate sources of information online?
Excellent question. So one of the things that this book teaches is to use discernment to make sure you've got legitimate sources. One of them is if it's an organization that specializes in that field. For instance, with Helen Keller, either the Helen Keller Association or an association on deafness and blindness. So organization sites are excellent. One thing that I do not accept in any research paper is Wikipedia. Wikipedia, Edia sounds like encyclopedia, but it's not written by experts in the field. Anyone can go in and contribute information, so it's not experts in the field. However, Wikipedia can be a fun place to start and then go down, and if they cite any sources, go to those sources so you can use it as a beginning of a crumb trail. And then go to the actual sources and cite those, read about that, and then put that, make a bibliography card for that news source. And then in your note cards, make sure you put that bibliography card on when you write that one tidbit note on that one card. Was that helpful?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
But make sure, it's very good. Excellent question. You've got to make sure they're reputable sources. You can check out Snopes. You can check out Truth or Fiction. Some of them are very biased sources too. It used to be trustworthy, but now they're not so much. It's better to stick with organizations that are behind that particular cause, or maybe the History Channel or well-known sources. Be very skeptical about somebody who thinks they know it all.
Right.
The other thing is you're clicking links. Be careful because it can take you to wrong areas. It can also be phishing and putting cookies and viruses in your computer. So you want to be very, very careful. Parents, I recommend keeping those computers in the dining room in a public area. And as soon as a student sees something wrong come up on the screen, say, hey, Mom, I got a problem over here, and be transparent and be very accountable, because we want to protect our eye gates at all times. Good question. Any other questions?
If I come up with an idea, would I have to source myself or quote myself?
Well, if you're writing about a topic, by this age, you're probably not the expert. And so you can save your opinions. If you go through the PHAA manual or diploma guidebook, you can see that if you want to count your research paper towards a credit in another subject, like you're going to do Helen Keller, you could count that towards history. In the conclusion, you need to add your own ideas and reflect on what your learning was. And that's a good part, but you don't have to cite that. But you can, that's the one place you can use first person. I feel she was an amazing woman and I want to be like her when I grow up. Or this is why I want to go to school to learn sign language, or something like that, which is exactly my life story. So don't quote yourself, but you're researching what other people say about your topic. I don't want to hear what you say about your topic. That is your opinion. You're writing a research paper that says what other people say about it. If you want to write your own thoughts on it, write an essay. Now, for PHAA, the 10-page paper can be an opinion paper. It can be a fictional story. It can be a script to a play. It doesn't have to be a full-blown research paper, but I think it's really a good idea for you to do at least one actual research paper in the 4 years in high school, so you can have practice before you get to college, if you're thinking about college or trade school, because you have to write papers. Or homeschooling in the future, so you can teach your own child. Got that one in. Did that help? Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Other questions?
I have one. So, I wrote a paper a couple weeks ago, and I had read a book, and there was one point that I really liked about the book, like an idea about it, and so I put that in my paper. But if I were to have like something like that, but it was like my entire theme, like it was kind of woven into everything, because like it was a point that I really liked, but I have to cite it in every place I mentioned it, or just once?
I would like to answer from the technical, and then your mom can relax back from wherever she wants to. Technically, you cite it every time because it's somebody else's idea or thought or fact every time. Now, should you have it cited every sentence? You can say, and this person said this. Once you cite it in a paragraph, I think it's okay to relax a little bit and not have to cite it again within that paragraph. APA even has a rule that if you use the author's name in the sentence, you don't have to do the year again, so it's a little bit relaxed within the paragraph, but throughout the paper, you really do need to say where that idea came from.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Patti. This was great. It's recorded. I think we'll have it this year, and we will put this up as a link through the PHAA website. And so people can come back and watch the recording again to review things. Thank you so much, Patti. Let's have a hand for Patti here. This was great.
Thank you all for being attentive, and go do those papers.
Yeah.
All right.
I have to close the meeting. So on to the next. Bye-bye.
Thank you.